The silence in the dining room was deafening, hanging heavily in the air like a thundercloud waiting to burst. I glanced around the polished oak table, eyes searching each face for a hint of laughter, a sign that maybe I'd misunderstood. But no one cracked a smile. "You're making Jason the CEO?" I repeated slowly, disbelief echoing in my voice. My father's expression remained stern, unwavering. Beside him, my mother's eyes softened slightly, pity flickering briefly before vanishing again behind a composed mask. And Jason, my brother, lounging comfortably at the opposite end of the table, looked as though he'd just received an early birthday gift. "Honey," my mother began gently, her tone like syrup masking something bitter. "Jason has natural charisma. People respond to him. They like him. It's a quality essential for leadership." I stared back blankly, my mind struggling to process the absurdity. Charisma? Leadership? Jason, the same person who couldn't keep a steady job, who'd managed to squander every bit of money handed to him, was suddenly a leader? "You're joking, right?" I asked again, voice sharper this time. "Jason spends more nights in clubs than in boardrooms. He's never managed a team, never even tried." My father cleared his throat, shaking his head dismissively. "Kelly, being CEO is more than just crunching numbers. Jason inspires loyalty. Employees like him." I felt the sting of that comment deep in my chest. For years, I'd devoted myself to our family business. Anderson Home Goods wasn't just a job, it was my passion, my purpose. I had put in endless hours refining processes, securing vital contracts, and meticulously managing relationships with vendors. All Jason had contributed was a charming smile and endless promises he never kept. Jason leaned back, stretching his arms casually behind his head. "Come on, Kel, don't make this awkward. It's not personal. Not personal. Every late night I spent buried in paperwork. Every moment I'd sacrificed friendships or relationships to prioritize the family business, that wasn't personal." Anger flared through me, hot and potent, though I kept it hidden beneath a mask of careful composure. "Jason," I said calmly, choosing each word deliberately, "running a business isn't just about smiles and handshakes. You'll need dedication, discipline, and real skills. Are you sure you're up for it?" He laughed lightly, the sound dismissive. "Relax, sis. I've got this. And hey, you'll still have your place. Everyone knows you're amazing with logistics and finance. You'll just support me." Support him. The phrase echoed mockingly in my head. After all my efforts, after dedicating years of my life to building something meaningful, I was reduced to nothing more than a helper, a secondary character in Jason's undeserved spotlight. I turned slowly to my mother, searching desperately for an ally. "Mom, please. You see how unfair this is, don't you? You know what I've done for this company." She hesitated, eyes flickering briefly toward my father, before gently patting my hand. "Sweetheart, you're brilliant, truly. But perhaps this is a chance for you to branch out, explore other things. Maybe start something of your own?" Her words cut deep. Was she truly suggesting I abandon everything I'd built, everything I'd dedicated myself to, because they favored Jason's shallow charm over my proven results? The realization hit me like a physical blow. No matter how hard I worked, how deeply I cared, I'd always be second best in their eyes. The pain was sharp, but with it came clarity. If they couldn't see my worth, maybe it was time to show them. Standing abruptly, I pushed my chair back, the scrape loud and jarring in the tense silence. "Fine," I said quietly, my voice steady despite the turmoil raging inside me. "If Jason's your leader, good luck. But don't expect me to stick around and watch him destroy everything Grandpa built." Jason rolled his eyes, smirking confidently. "Come on, Kelly. Don't be dramatic." Ignoring him, I locked eyes briefly with my father, his expression unreadable. "When this blows up, and it will, you'll regret this decision." Without another word, I left the dining room, heart hammering in my chest, my entire world suddenly shifting beneath my feet. Outside, the night air was crisp, and as I climbed into my car, my grip tightened around the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Driving away from the only life I'd known was terrifying, but beneath the fear was something else. A determination stronger than anything I'd ever felt. Jason could have the family business, could bask in his undeserved glory, but he'd soon realize charm and smiles wouldn't pay the bills. In the days that followed, my family tried reaching out, but I ignored their calls, deleted voicemails unread. I needed space to think, to breathe, to heal. Every dismissive comment, every slight, became fuel, powering my determination to succeed on my own terms. I threw myself into research, late nights spent scanning market trends, consumer behaviors, emerging opportunities. Slowly, a vision began to form, an idea so compelling it felt destined. My family's business was stuck in the past, refusing to innovate, ignoring the booming e-commerce space. What if I didn't just compete, but completely transform the home goods market? I could create something fresh, sustainable, affordable, everything Anderson Home Goods wasn't. A fire ignited within me, blazing brighter with each passing day. My family had dismissed me, laughed at my potential, labeled me as too serious, but I was about to prove them wrong. Every rejection they'd thrown my way had prepared me for this exact moment. I didn't need their validation. I would build something remarkable, something entirely mine, and soon they'd regret ever overlooking me. As I stared into the mirror one evening, eyes reflecting newfound purpose, I whispered a silent promise to myself. They'd made their choice, but so had I. My family thought they'd handed Jason victory, but what they really did was awaken something inside me. They'd soon discover that underestimating me was their greatest mistake. Because the best revenge wouldn't be simply proving them wrong, it would be winning without them. Leaving the comfort and familiarity of my family's business was terrifying, like stepping off solid ground into uncharted waters. I had never felt more alone, yet underneath the fear burned a relentless determination. My family thought I was making a foolish decision. They assumed I would fail, quietly, embarrassingly, and come crawling back. But they didn't know me. Not really. They had overlooked my resilience, my ambition, my unyielding will to succeed. In the small, cramped apartment I rented after walking away from everything familiar, I spent countless nights staring at the ceiling, thoughts racing faster than my heart could keep up. I refused to let their doubts become my own. Instead, I turned their skepticism into motivation, feeding a fire inside me that grew brighter each day. I quickly realized I needed an idea, a good one. Something innovative enough to thrive independently, yet accessible enough to resonate with everyday people. I thought back to my days at Anderson Home Goods, recalling the frustration I felt whenever my suggestions for modernization were casually dismissed. Our customers had wanted quality, sustainability, affordability, and convenience. But my family's business was too comfortable with old-fashioned wholesalers, ignoring the revolution happening right before their eyes. E-commerce. Why not create exactly what the market needed? A line of home essentials that embrace sustainability, affordability, and sleek, modern aesthetics. A direct-to-consumer brand, precisely what my family had dismissed as impractical. Excitement surged through me. This wasn't just an idea, it felt more like destiny calling. But reality quickly set in. I had ambition, drive, a promising idea, and one serious obstacle: money. Unlike Jason, I didn't have endless funds at my disposal or parents ready to bankroll my whims. All I had was a modest savings account and my small retirement fund, hard-earned money I'd painstakingly saved, hoping someday it would help secure my future. Now that future felt closer than ever, though far riskier than I'd imagined. One evening, sitting alone in my kitchen, I stared at my laptop screen, fingers trembling as I initiated the transfer that emptied my retirement account. Fear and adrenaline tangled in my chest, and for a moment, panic clawed at my resolve. Was this reckless? Was I throwing away stability for a dream I had no guarantee would work? Yet behind those doubts was an undeniable truth. If I didn't take this leap now, I'd always wonder, what if? Once I committed, I threw myself entirely into my vision. Days blurred into nights as I researched product suppliers, logistics, branding, and marketing strategies. Sleep became an afterthought. My apartment walls filled with post-it notes and sketches, mapping out every detail meticulously. Every dollar I invested was precious, forcing me to become careful and creative with each decision. After weeks of obsessive preparation, I received my first product samples from a small, sustainable manufacturer overseas. When I opened the shipment, my heart raced. The products, a collection of elegantly simple bamboo cutting boards, sleek reusable dish towels, and beautifully minimalist tableware, were perfect. The quality surpassed even my hopeful expectations. Holding them in my hands felt symbolic, like finally grasping my own destiny. Next came building the platform itself. With no funds to spare for a developer, I spent hours watching tutorials, painstakingly teaching myself web design and digital marketing. Each line of code felt like a small triumph. Each polished web page became proof of my determination. I learned SEO, online advertising, and social media marketing, pouring every ounce of myself into mastering these new skills. When my online store finally launched, excitement and dread churned in my stomach. I shared the news hesitantly at a cousin's wedding, a decision I quickly regretted. Jason laughed openly, spilling champagne from his glass as he mocked me. Bamboo dish towels and online shopping? Good luck with that, Kelly, he sneered, prompting chuckles from my parents. Mom's sympathetic yet patronizing gaze was crushing. Honey, e-commerce is just a fad. It's unstable. Why don't you come back home and help Jason? We could still use your skills. Dad just shook his head dismissively. If you insist on this internet experiment, fine, but don't expect us to bail you out. I clenched my fists under the table, forcing a calm smile. Let them laugh. Let them underestimate me once more. Their dismissal became fuel, igniting even greater determination. The first weeks online were brutally slow. Orders trickled in one or two at a time, each one a precious lifeline that kept panic at bay. I personally packaged every item, handwriting thank you notes, hoping genuine connection would make an impression. Every late night at my tiny kitchen table felt endless, yet strangely satisfying. Then, out of nowhere, everything changed overnight. One early morning, my phone buzzed relentlessly, messages flooding my inbox. Confused, heart racing, I checked my notifications and saw the reason. A popular influencer had spontaneously featured my cutting boards and dish towels in her latest video. Her glowing praise, paired with a direct link to my store, triggered a tidal wave of orders. Within hours, I had hundreds of new customers. By evening, thousands more orders flooded in. My small inventory quickly sold out, forcing me into frantic calls with suppliers to ramp up production immediately. In a whirlwind of adrenaline-fueled urgency, I scrambled to fulfill orders, barely sleeping for days, yet feeling electrified by the sudden explosion of success. My small apartment turned into an improvised warehouse, boxes stacked to the ceiling. Yet amid the chaos, joy overwhelmed me. My idea, the one my family mocked and dismissed, was actually working. Just weeks later, as I caught my breath from the initial rush, I realized I'd reached an extraordinary milestone. My small side project had generated its first $1 million in sales. The realization left me breathless, stunned by the sheer power of perseverance. And the best part? While my business flourished, word trickled in that Jason's leadership was already faltering at Anderson Home Goods. His charm couldn't hide operational chaos, poor decisions, and declining sales. He'd chosen flashy image over substance, and now reality was setting in. Though I felt a pang of sadness imagining my grandfather's legacy unraveling, a deeper satisfaction filled me. My family believed Jason was the leader, the visionary. They'd written me off as too cautious, too methodical. But methodical was exactly why my business was thriving. And as Jason's company crumbled under the weight of mismanagement, I was quietly building something remarkable. A thriving, innovative business born not from privilege or charm, but sheer determination, creativity, and relentless hard work. It was astonishing how rapidly success could rewrite your entire life story. One moment, I was packaging orders alone in my cramped apartment. The next, I was navigating an avalanche of new customers, riding the wave of recognition I'd only dreamed about. That single influencer post had transformed my small, hopeful project into a thriving, vibrant business practically overnight. But this newfound momentum didn't allow me time to rest or bask in my sudden fortune. With each passing day, my small apartment became increasingly overwhelmed by inventory. Boxes lined every available surface, crowding my living space until I barely had room to move. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford, yet exhaustion had never felt more rewarding. My days blurred into an endless cycle, processing orders, managing logistics, and responding to floods of excited emails. Each new customer felt like validation, each positive review confirmation that my vision had real worth. The laughter of my family echoed quietly in my mind, but now, instead of bitterness, I felt a determined satisfaction. Every order, Every happy customer was proof they'd underestimated me in ways they could never have imagined. Within a matter of weeks, it became clear that my current approach wasn't sustainable. I needed help, real help, to manage this exponential growth. Carefully, I reinvested every single cent of revenue back into my business, hiring my first employees. Maria, a passionate young woman who tackled customer service like a natural, and Sarah, whose quiet efficiency transformed our chaotic inventory into streamlined precision. Together, we moved the business into a modest warehouse space just outside the city. Standing in that empty room for the first time, surrounded by potential, I felt a powerful wave of pride. This space wasn't inherited, wasn't handed down, it was mine, built from nothing but stubborn determination and countless sleepless nights. As we settled into our new headquarters, sales continued to surge. Social media buzzed with enthusiastic recommendations, and soon my inbox overflowed with partnership proposals and opportunities I'd never dreamed of. Unlike my brother Jason, who'd thrown money at flashy campaigns hoping to buy success, I learned quickly to trust my instincts and data-driven decisions, carefully expanding my product line to meet demand without overextending. Every new item was thoughtfully designed, reflecting the values that define my brand: simplicity, sustainability, and genuine quality. I spent countless hours refining product details, always prioritizing customer satisfaction over quick profits. Unlike my family's outdated business model, I understood that true loyalty was earned through trust and integrity, not gimmicks or charm. Months passed, and what began as cautious optimism evolved into genuine confidence. It wasn't long before my business hit its next major milestone: $5 million in revenue. The figure felt surreal, nearly unimaginable, yet there it was, displayed proudly on my computer screen. For a brief moment, I allowed myself to savor the victory, remembering clearly how Jason and my parents had openly mocked the idea. Speaking of Jason, news from Anderson Home Goods had grown increasingly grim. Former coworkers reached out discreetly, confiding their frustrations and concerns. Jason's confident facade had begun to crumble, replaced by confusion and chaos. He'd poured money into extravagant, ineffective marketing, believing charisma alone could save a failing business. But charisma couldn't solve logistical nightmares, couldn't compensate for poor decisions, couldn't disguise disastrous mismanagement. One afternoon, while I was in my office analyzing sales projections, my phone buzzed with a familiar name. Karen, an old colleague from Anderson Home Goods. Her voice, quiet and hesitant, revealed more than she intended. "Kelly," she began carefully, "things here are. Jason raised prices overnight. Customers are furious. Our suppliers are pulling out. People are talking layoffs." I leaned back, absorbing her words thoughtfully. This was the inevitable outcome I'd predicted from the very beginning. "I'm sorry, Karen. Truly, but I'm not surprised." She sighed heavily. "Neither am I. Jason doesn't know what he's doing, but nobody dares to challenge him. It's a mess." After hanging up, I stared at the phone, a swirl of emotions washing over me. Part of me felt vindicated. My warnings had gone ignored, my skills undervalued, and now they were paying the price. Yet, beneath that satisfaction lingered sadness. My grandfather had poured his heart into building Anderson Home Goods, and now Jason's incompetence threatened to erase decades of hard work. But while Jason floundered, my business thrived. We expanded our product line, negotiated stronger partnerships, and solidified our position as a trusted, beloved brand. Our customers became our advocates, proudly sharing their purchases online, each glowing review further cementing our reputation. Late one evening, Maria gently knocked on my office door, excitement shining in her eyes. "You have to see this," she said, placing her laptop carefully on my desk. An influential magazine had featured us, calling my business the e-commerce disruptor, redefining modern home essentials. The glowing article praised our sustainability, affordability, and rapid growth. My chest tightened with pride. "Congratulations," Maria smiled warmly, genuine joy radiating from her expression. "We did this. You did this." My eyes filled unexpectedly with tears. I'd spent years craving recognition from people who refused to see my worth. Yet here, among a team that genuinely valued my vision, I'd found validation far more meaningful than my family's hollow approval. Just days after the article, my phone rang again. This time, it wasn't an old coworker. It was my father. I hesitated, heart thudding unevenly. Curiosity eventually won out. Hello? My father's voice sounded strained, cautious. Kelly, it's been a while. We need to talk. I leaned back slowly, gathering my composure. About? He hesitated, embarrassment heavy in the silence. Anderson Home Goods. It's Jason. Things haven't gone as planned. We need your help. A strange mix of vindication and disbelief washed over me. Years ago, they'd chosen charm over competence. Now, faced with the consequences, they finally saw the truth. You need my help? I repeated quietly, savoring the irony. Yes, my father admitted reluctantly. We're desperate. Jason, he can't handle it. He's in over his head. I considered his words carefully. This was the moment I'd anticipated, the validation I'd craved for so long. But hearing it now didn't spark joy, only quiet determination. All right, I responded calmly. We'll talk, but understand one thing. I'm not coming back to rescue you. My father fell silent. He knew exactly what I meant. Our next meeting wouldn't happen on his terms, but on mine. After years of being dismissed, underestimated, and overlooked, it was finally my turn to set the rules. The call with my father lingered heavily in my mind long after we hung up. His voice, usually firm, confident, even intimidating, had sounded strained, embarrassed, defeated. A part of me had imagined this moment countless times, picturing exactly how satisfying it would be. Yet, now that it had actually happened, my emotions were unexpectedly complex. In the days that followed, my mind kept circling back to the request. Anderson Home Goods, the very company that had once been my life and then tossed me aside without a second thought, was now teetering on the edge of collapse. Jason's charm had finally worn thin. His shallow decisions, his reckless spending, his complete disregard for strategic management, every misguided choice he'd made was finally catching up to him. But instead of rejoicing, I felt conflicted. My grandfather had built that business from scratch, with sweat and sacrifice. Despite the pain my family had caused me, it hurt deeply to know his legacy was unraveling so quickly. Finally, after several sleepless nights spent contemplating my next move, I picked up the phone and dialed my father's number. Kelly? His voice sounded cautiously hopeful, almost pleading. Let's meet, I said, my tone firm yet calm. But not at your offices. Come to mine. A pause hung in the air, filled with discomfort, but he eventually agreed, sensing he no longer had the leverage to argue. The following morning, I arrived at my office early, nerves tingling beneath my confident facade. My headquarters was everything Anderson Home Goods wasn't: modern, vibrant, and full of purpose. Staff bustled with energy, engaged, and genuinely passionate about our mission. I'd built more than just a business. I'd created a culture of innovation and respect, exactly the opposite of Jason's disastrous leadership style. When my family finally arrived, their expressions told me everything. My mother's eyes widened with shock and admiration. My father's jaw tightened uncomfortably, and Jason looked as though he'd walked into his worst nightmare. Gone was the cocky confidence he'd worn like armor. In its place stood insecurity, bitterness, and barely contained resentment. Kelly, this is incredible, my mother murmured softly, visibly astonished. My father cleared his throat, awkwardly trying to mask his own surprise. Yes, you've done well. Better than well, I corrected him gently but firmly, meeting his gaze head-on. Now, what exactly do you need from me? Jason crossed his arms defensively, eyes fixed stubbornly on the floor, refusing to acknowledge me directly. We just need some strategic advice, he muttered irritably. I couldn't help but smile slightly at his discomfort. Strategic advice? My father sighed heavily, shoulders slumping. Kelly, the truth is Jason's management has led us into deep trouble. Our suppliers are pulling out, sales have plummeted, and the bank is threatening foreclosure. We're drowning. Jason's head snapped up, defensively interjecting. It wasn't entirely my fault. The market shifted. The market shifted toward innovation, Jason. I cut him off calmly, clearly, evenly. The market shifted toward exactly what I suggested years ago: sustainability, affordability, direct-to-consumer sales. You ignored all of it. He stared silently, fury and humiliation radiating off him in waves. What exactly are you asking for? I turned back to my father, voice steady but firm. My father hesitated, visibly struggling with his pride. We need financial assistance, expertise. Honestly, anything you can offer. I leaned back thoughtfully, studying their faces carefully. Let me get this straight. After choosing Jason's charm over my proven abilities, after openly mocking my ideas, you're now asking me to rescue your business. My words echoed in the silence, harsh but undeniably accurate. My mother looked down, embarrassed. Jason's fists clenched at his sides, clearly wishing he could disappear. Finally, my father met my eyes directly. We made a mistake, Kelly. We underestimated you. But your grandfather's legacy is at stake. Please. I paused, letting their desperation linger in the air, savoring a moment I'd long envisioned. But instead of gloating, I felt surprisingly composed. I wasn't angry anymore. I was powerful, in control, and finally recognized. I'll help you, I said evenly, seeing relief immediately flood their faces. But before they could speak, I continued firmly, but on my terms. They tensed, unsure what was coming next. What terms? Jason demanded warily, suspicion coloring his tone. You come work here. Under me, I explained calmly, voice clear and unwavering. Not as executives, as entry-level interns. The shock that followed was almost comical. Jason laughed bitterly, disbelief etched into every line of his face. You're joking. Do I look like I'm joking? I countered smoothly. You need me, not the other way around. This is my condition. My father exhaled sharply, humiliation evident but undeniable acceptance creeping in. My mother looked shaken, speechless at this sudden reversal of fortunes. Jason's face twisted angrily. This is ridiculous. You're just doing this to humiliate us. No, Jason, I corrected him, my voice measured but fierce. I'm doing this because you need to learn something our parents never taught you. Respect, humility, and accountability. Skills your charm could never buy. The room fell silent, tension hanging thickly. You have a choice, I continued evenly. Accept my terms and get a second chance, or refuse and watch your business collapse completely? Which will it be? The silence that followed was deafening, broken finally by my father's defeated sigh. We accept. Jason looked ready to protest, but my father silenced him with a firm glance. This is our only chance. You've made your bed, Jason. Now you'll lie in it. In that moment, the tables had irrevocably turned. The power dynamic had shifted permanently, and everyone in that room knew it. Very well, I said calmly, feeling the strength in my own voice. Welcome aboard. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. sharp, and Jason, dress appropriately. You'll be working in our warehouse. His expression darkened further, bitterness etched deep into his features. Yet beneath the resentment was a flicker of realization, however grudging, that he had no choice. As my family left, their pride bruised but reality finally setting in, I stood alone in my office, heart pounding. This moment wasn't simply about revenge or satisfaction. It was justice. It was proof that integrity, perseverance, and genuine hard work mattered more than privilege or charisma ever could. And while watching them walk away, humbled and shaken, felt undeniably good, it wasn't just about defeating them. It was about finally claiming the respect and dignity I'd earned. They might have underestimated me once, but now the entire narrative had changed. Now, finally, I was the one writing the story. The following morning, precisely at 8, my family arrived at my corporate headquarters looking decidedly uncomfortable. My parents, once confident and commanding, now stood awkwardly in the bright lobby. Jason, their golden boy, looked visibly irritated, his shirt slightly wrinkled and his pride deeply bruised. I watched from my office doorway, quietly taking in the scene. It wasn't about revenge, it was about accountability. They'd always avoided consequences, Jason especially, and now it was finally time for them to face reality. Stepping forward, I greeted them warmly but professionally. Good morning. Glad you made it. Jason scowled, refusing to meet my eyes. My father cleared his throat stiffly. We're ready. Excellent, I replied calmly, leading them deeper into the building. Employees smiled warmly as we passed, their energy and enthusiasm a stark contrast to the discomfort radiating from my family. When we reached my office, I handed them folders containing their assignments. Jason, I began gently but firmly, you'll be assisting in our warehouse operations, inventory, restocking, and organizing. We have high standards, so attention to detail is crucial. Jason's expression darkened further, eyes flashing with resentment. Seriously? Warehouse work? I held his gaze evenly. Everyone here starts with hands-on roles. It teaches humility, something you clearly need. My mother glanced anxiously at Jason, silently urging him to accept without complaint. Reluctantly, he snatched the folder from me, bitterness etched into his expression. Turning to my parents, I smiled politely. Mom, you'll handle customer support, answering emails, responding to feedback, and ensuring our customers feel valued. My mother visibly paled, discomfort clear. Customer support? But, I gently interrupted her protest. You've always claimed people skills are essential. Now you'll put that belief into practice. This role will help you truly understand our customers' needs. My father shifted uncomfortably, realizing his turn was next. I handed him his assignment. Dad, supplier relations. You'll manage calls, negotiate rates, ensure deliveries are timely, critical tasks you once overlooked. He frowned deeply, pride clearly wounded. Cold calling suppliers? Yes, I confirmed firmly. Real negotiation, not empty promises or charm. Effective communication and strategic thinking are essential. My father looked as though he might protest, then seemed to reconsider, recognizing the irony. Understood, he finally muttered, resignation heavy in his tone. As they left my office, assignments in hand, I felt a sense of satisfaction, not from humiliation but from justice. They were finally confronting the consequences of their actions, the very thing they'd avoided for so long. Over the next few weeks, I observed their progress closely. Jason initially struggled, his warehouse tasks simple, yet humbling. More than once, I found him grumbling quietly to himself as he carried boxes or checked inventory. Yet, slowly, something shifted. His initial arrogance gave way to quiet determination. Perhaps, finally forced into a position of accountability, Jason was learning the lessons he'd always ignored. My mother's transition into customer support was challenging. She wasn't accustomed to handling complaints or criticism. Early on, she appeared overwhelmed, nearly in tears after difficult interactions. Yet gradually, I noticed changes. She began genuinely connecting with customers. Her warmth and empathy, previously directed solely toward Jason, now reaching those who truly appreciated it. My father surprised me most of all. Initially uncomfortable making cold calls and negotiating, he eventually found his footing. He rediscovered the skills he'd neglected: careful listening, thoughtful responses, strategic thinking. Suppliers appreciated his sincerity, and he began to see the importance of genuine relationships built on mutual respect. Several weeks into their internship, I invited them to my office again. They entered quietly, their demeanor transformed. No longer defensive or entitled, they seemed humbled yet oddly satisfied. Well, I began softly, leaning forward. What have you learned? Jason spoke first, his voice unusually thoughtful. I underestimated how much effort goes into even the smallest tasks. I didn't realize how every role impacts the company's success. My mother nodded slowly, sincerity evident in her expression. I learned that genuine care for customers isn't just a marketing slogan, it's essential and rewarding. My father exhaled deeply, meeting my gaze directly. I finally understand why your grandfather succeeded. He valued honesty, integrity, and relationships over quick profits. Somewhere along the line, I forgot that. Their reflections surprised me. I'd expected resistance, even resentment, not genuine introspection. The moment felt meaningful, the first true connection between us in years. I'm glad, I said quietly, emotion rising unexpectedly. I didn't bring you here to punish you. I wanted you to see why I succeeded where Jason failed, not because of luck or charm, but because I valued integrity, discipline, and respect. Jason's eyes softened, a rare vulnerability surfacing. I owe you an apology, Kelly. You were right about everything. His sincerity caught me off guard. My parents remained silent, eyes filled with regret. Yet beneath the regret, I sensed newfound respect. Taking a deep breath, I reached into my desk and retrieved a set of documents. Now, I'm offering you a choice. They exchanged uncertain glances as I explained. These papers contain a severance package. Accept it, resign from your internships, and walk away comfortably, though you won't be part of this business again. My mother's eyes filled with tears, realization dawning. You want us out? I shook my head gently. I don't want to push you out. But trust is essential, and rebuilding it will take time. If you choose to stay, you remain employees, earning your roles just like everyone else. Silence stretched heavily, broken finally by my father's quiet voice. We've learned important lessons, Kelly, but perhaps this is the best outcome. Your business is thriving. It's yours alone, built from your vision and hard work. We don't deserve a place here, not yet. Jason glanced down, nodding slowly in reluctant agreement. My mother wiped her eyes, accepting reality quietly. We'll take the severance, my father concluded firmly. This business deserves to remain yours entirely, but know this, we're proud of you, more than you can ever imagine. Their words hit deeply, stirring long-suppressed emotions. After years of seeking validation, finally hearing those words was profoundly healing. Thank you, I managed softly, voice steady despite emotion tightening my chest. Your honesty means more than you know. They stood quietly, exchanged gentle goodbyes, and left my office, no longer adversaries, but something closer to family again. Watching them walk away felt bittersweet, but also freeing. Sitting alone afterward, I reflected quietly. This wasn't about revenge or humiliation. It was about redemption. My family had finally faced their mistakes, grown from them, and allowed me the closure I desperately needed. I had built an empire entirely my own, but perhaps my greatest victory wasn't the empire itself. Maybe it was healing, forgiveness, and finally knowing my worth, independent of anyone else's approval. After my family left, the silence of my office felt comforting rather than empty. For the first time in years, I sat alone without the heavy burden of seeking approval. There was no longer any voice in the back of my mind whispering that I wasn't enough, no lingering doubt about my worth. Finally, I'd found peace, not in revenge, but in freedom. In the days following their departure, a sense of clarity and renewed purpose filled every aspect of my work. With the emotional turmoil behind me, I channeled my energy completely into my business. I was more determined than ever to continue growing, innovating, and leading with integrity. The very things my family had overlooked but that had proven essential to success. Jason, predictably, drifted away quietly. He moved from one failed venture to another, always chasing shortcuts instead of investing in genuine effort. Occasionally, bits of news reached me through mutual acquaintances, each story unsurprising but tinged with a quiet sadness. Jason, for all his faults, had potential he'd never embraced because he'd been taught charm was enough. My parents took the severance package and moved away, settling into a modest home far from the bustling city life they'd once adored. Our communication became limited, brief calls or occasional texts that slowly grew less frequent. Yet, there was a newfound respect in these interactions. They no longer questioned my choices or offered unsolicited advice. Instead, there was quiet acceptance of my success, a realization that I'd flourished without their guidance. I turned my focus toward building a supportive environment for the team who'd stood by me through everything. Unlike the cold, corporate culture of Anderson Home Goods, I aimed to create something meaningful, personal, a workplace that empowered people rather than exploiting them. Maria thrived in her role as head of customer service, her natural compassion elevating our brand's reputation to new heights. Customers didn't just return for our products. They returned because they felt genuinely cared for. Maria understood something my family never did, that real connection and authenticity were invaluable. Sarah, too, rose quickly through the ranks. Starting as a humble warehouse assistant, she'd proven herself indispensable through sheer hard work and sharp insight. As our logistics manager, she streamlined operations, improved efficiency, and ensured that we remained innovative, yet grounded. Watching her growth filled me with pride, her success a clear reflection of my own values. One afternoon, while reviewing quarterly reports, my assistant knocked gently, holding an envelope. "This just arrived for you," she said softly, placing it on my desk. Curious, I opened it carefully. Inside was an invitation to a prestigious business awards gala. My company had been nominated as the fastest-growing e-commerce brand of the year. My heart raced with excitement. Recognition wasn't new, but this acknowledgement felt different, validation of the values I'd fought so hard to uphold. The gala was the epitome of success, a stage reserved for visionaries, leaders, and innovators. On the night of the ceremony, dressed elegantly but feeling a rush of nerves, I stepped into the grand ballroom. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow, illuminating countless industry leaders gathered together. As I mingled, exchanging greetings and handshakes, pride surged within me, not from ego, but genuine accomplishment. When my category was announced, I held my breath, anticipation tightening my chest. And the winner for fastest-growing e-commerce brand is... The host's voice paused dramatically. "Kelly Anderson." Applause erupted around me, the noise overwhelming yet exhilarating. Walking to the stage felt surreal, the moment shimmering with significance. Standing at the podium, award in hand, I faced the room full of peers, competitors, and visionaries. "Thank you," I began, voice steady despite my pounding heart. A few years ago, I was told I lacked charisma, that I was too rigid, too serious, not leadership material. My ideas were dismissed, my passion overlooked. But tonight, standing here before you, I'm proof that success isn't determined by charm or inheritance, but by hard work, perseverance, and integrity. Applause rose again, powerful, heartfelt. I continued, voice strengthening with each word. This journey wasn't easy. I faced doubt, rejection, and challenges I thought might break me. Yet each obstacle only clarified my purpose further. I learned that true leadership means valuing people, integrity, and genuine connection above profits. These are the principles that built this company. I paused, looking around the room, the faces of my team shining proudly in the audience. Tonight isn't just my victory. It belongs to every single person who believed in this vision, who worked tirelessly alongside me. This moment proves something vital. You don't need approval from those who doubted you to succeed. You only need to believe fiercely in yourself. The standing ovation that followed left me breathless, eyes filling with tears as I absorbed the weight of the moment. It was validation, not from family, not from critics, but from my peers, my employees, and most importantly, myself. Later, standing alone on the balcony, the night breeze gentle on my skin, I heard soft footsteps behind me. Turning, I saw Sarah and Maria approaching, smiles radiant. "You were amazing," Maria said warmly, embracing me tightly. Sarah nodded sincerely, her expression filled with admiration. "We're so proud to be part of this journey with you." Their words struck deeply, reinforcing the genuine bonds I'd built, not based on obligation or family ties, but mutual respect and shared dreams. "Thank you," I whispered softly, emotion thickening my voice. "I couldn't have done this without either of you." Returning to my office the next morning, the award placed proudly on my desk, I reflected deeply on everything I'd experienced. I realized that winning wasn't about proving anyone wrong. It wasn't about revenge or triumphing over those who had dismissed me. True victory lay in realizing my own worth, independent of anyone else's judgment or approval. My family's rejection had once felt devastating, an obstacle I feared might break me. Yet in reality, their doubts had only strengthened my resolve, forcing me to build something more meaningful than mere wealth or status. Now, sitting at my desk, watching employees move purposefully around the vibrant workspace I'd created, I felt something far more powerful than revenge: peace. I'd built my empire from nothing, guided by integrity, hard work, and genuine passion. And the greatest satisfaction wasn't seeing my family humbled, but knowing that despite everything, I had become exactly who I was always meant to be.